Touch mine.
Welcome to this week's episode of Whoscussion. I'm your host, that random guy, and of course, as always, I've got the lovely, the stupendous, the sexually pleasing Harry Skelly.
Yes.
So
I'm now a
what was that, Harry Skelly?
father in the religion of Croton, by the way.
Heavenly Father Croton, we do believe. This week's episode, for part A, we're going to be covering so it's just called Revenge of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
And then our second story is going to be Brave-ish Heart, which is the class episode. So again, this is going to be... I think we can actually stay away from the parental guidance warning this week, because none of that sort of stuff even happens in this episode, thank God.
Yeah, this is actually a surprisingly PG one, actually.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Of course, except for all the people getting bloodied up and dying, but other than that, it's pretty PG.
I definitely agree with you there. For part B, we're going to be doing two comic book stories. We're going to be doing TV action and Ship of Fools. And the reason behind that, we'll get into more when we jump into part B. And finally, for this week, we'll be doing Pennywise, Pound Foolish, which is a Second Doctor short trip, which is actually short this week, surprisingly.
Yeah. Woo.
So, Revenge of the Cybermen. I'm going to start off today, if that's okay with you, Harry Skelly, with Revenge of the Cybermen here. So, this is 4 stories that take place right after Genesis of the Daleks. Now, you might notice that we didn't do Genesis of the Daleks last week. We have already done Genesis of the Daleks here on Whoscussion. I'm going to leave a link in the description for that, and there might be a card on the screen. I don't quite know just yet. But Revenge of the Cybermen takes place just after. They're using the time ring. That's my favourite dressing up Time Lord ever. If you go back and watch the episode of Whoscussion, you'll see that Time Lord. I absolutely love him. He's so
the greatest Time Lord.
Oh my god! So
he's almost as great as the fact that the aliens in this, other than the Cybermen, of course. What are their names now? What are they calling themselves? They call them the Vogans?
Yeah.
Vogans?
The Vogans.
Because they're on planet Voga.
Yeah.
Vogans. Yeah. They are all wearing Time Lord seals.
Yeah, I'm so glad you noticed that, because I wanted to talk to you this week about that. So there's a so episode 1 is a whole bunch of world building for where they are in Earth's current history. They've gone back to Nerva, but they've gone back further back in time than before Nerva was used as an ark. Nerva seems to be more of a research facility that's military run, but not like sort of the way that military run things are in a lot of material on TV, especially like American, where they show the American military complex as being like this evil thing. They seem to be pretty nice dudes all around. They're just like nice traveling around dudes that just happen to carry machine guns, you know?
Yeah, they just seem to be more like just general Navy sort of deal. That's the thing, is that like in a lot of popular media, the army is always seen as like real evil and like real like marching line sort of deal, but the Navy is always real chill and just laid back. So I have a feeling that's why a lot of people like to assume that in space we're just going to be the Navy instead of the army.
Oh well, the reason behind that is because they use ships. That's actually the reason behind that.
I know. They say that the Navy because of the ships, but I'm like, there's like a lot of thing is that we have a military, but we've just accumulated all 3 into just being the Navy now.
Yeah.
So yeah, but the whole having a laid back feel of being in the Navy or being on an Air Force boat or something like that, like that seems a lot more peace loving than the army.
Yeah. So these guys are so chillax, but what's been happening is there's only 4 people still alive on the station, and the station's been put into a quarantine by Earth Control. So the quarantine is to stop what they believe to be a plague. Now the Doctor, Harry, and Sarah, I almost forgot Sarah's name for some reason there, which is a bit weird since Harry's only in it for 1 season. I love you, Harry. I love you. I've grown to love Harry in this story, especially since he's just like, oh girl, oh chum.
He's so
great. He's like a 19th century gentleman. It's so amazing. So they happen to be on Nerva. Again, they're in the wrong time period, and they stumble upon these dead bodies. Now, I originally watched the story on a very small screen, and this morning with my wife, I rewatched the story again. So it was the second time in 1 week, because she wanted to watch it as well. I went back and watched it on a big giant screen, and these bodies, I realized something. Only one of them, and that's the one closest to the camera, is an actual person, and the rest of the mannequins with wigs.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yes, I imagine that nobody in the original days would have noticed that either, being small screens themselves. But yeah, they totally were.
It's pretty incredible. This is the first time we've seen the Cybermen since the invasion, which was with Patrick Troughton. So it's cool to see them take a breather. You who should learn from this. And it's great that like even the Daleks have had a bit of a breather. I mean, the last time we saw them was Planet of the Daleks, which unfortunately was supposed to be a Roger Delgado story, but as we know, that didn't turn out to happen. And the Cybermen are very much the Tom Baker era Cybermen, where they're a bit more emotional. I've noticed that they're not as calculating as say the Tomb of the Cybermen or Nuhu Cybermen. Nuhu Cybermen are very, very robotic, and that's something I don't like about them because you don't see that they were human in Nuhu. Whereas I love the Cybermen as an echo of humanity is still in there somewhere that's just been suppressed by robotics. One thing I love about the Mondasian Cybermen and going on to the Talosian Cybermen is that they're a mixture of plastic and robot parts because they're a synthetic life form. And if you read the old TV novels, it talked about the fact that the skin was plastic. And also you see Polly kills them because their skin is plastic. Good old Polly, computer engineer and Cybermen killer. Just put that on your CV. And stopper of the Daleks. She knows foreign, you know. So the Cybermen thought they had wiped out a race that was very proficient at killing them. So there's a race that had almost brought them to extinction because the Cybermen in Doctor Who are like rodents, in Classic Who at least, not in Modern Who, but in Classic Who they were rodents basically, always sort of clinging to life. And these people, the Vogons rather, they had come up with weaponry that had killed the Cybermen, but then they decided to isolate themselves underneath the crust of their planet.
I don't think that they were the ones who invented it. I think that in line with when the Cyber War, in line with the humans and the other defenders, I guess, and the ones who were fighting against the Cybermen in the Cyber War, they all in conjunction came up with the sparkle guns, using the Vogan's gold. And I guess that shortly after they defeated the Cybermen, they were like, we're all out of gold. We should probably seclude ourselves. Yeah, so they decided to seclude themselves, and they realized sort of the horror of human greed. It's something that the lead counselor brings up. Now, that leads me on to another point there. With these Vogons, there's two separate castes. There are the counselors and the guardians, and they are basically two separate governments, but with the counselors having a bit more power than the guardians. Yeah. And it's funny because the Guardian leader, what was his name? Vangelen. He was cool. I liked him. I'm going to call him Ball Patch Man. So Ball Patch Man. Yeah. I'm just going to grab his name. Actually, his name was Vorus. I liked Vorus because he had come up with this elaborate plan of coaxing the last remaining Cybermen to Vogon and then wiping them out. And he was pretty close to it, but then the counselors had to get all annoying and stop them. And he's all like, I had this perfect plan to wipe out the Cybermen, and then you had to just go snooping around. But the thing is that it totally would have worked if the Doctor hadn't shown up at all.
Exactly.
He comes in and messes everything up, and then eventually gets it back on track. But in the end, if he'd just not shown up, it would have gone perfectly fine.
Absolutely correct.
Thanks, Time Ring.
Thanks, Time Ring. You're great. The TARDIS is adrift for this story, and the Doctor talks about it coming back to them. The way I see it, though, I think he really didn't know what was going on and was just trying to make Harry and Sarah feel safe. Because I think the Celestial Intervention Agency definitely still had his TARDIS from the Sontaran experiment. So he's waiting for the TARDIS to get back. So basically, he's without help. Now he finds out that one of the survivors on the ship, on Nerva, in this current point in time, is actually a traitor. And what I love about him is he reminded me of. Do you remember the Smugglers with the Patrick Troughton story?
Yeah.
In the Smugglers, no, not the Smugglers. Sorry, not the Smugglers. The Space Pirates.
Yeah.
The Smugglers was the first of the story. So the Space Pirate story. You remember when the woman turns to the camera and shows she's evil by smiling?
Yeah. He
does
definitely
that
reminded me of
exact
that.
same thing. And I was just like, oh my god, Harriet Scully's gonna love that scene.
Yeah, it was great. It's I do love that form of writing is just amazing. Because it feels B grade, but it's not. That's the best thing about it. Because you can totally do it in character. Look off into the distance and smirk madly. It looks better and more menacing if you've got the camera pointing at their face, and they do that.
But I saw that and I was like, oh my god, it's the Space Pirates all over again. And all I was expecting now is some old Western American guy cooking an egg on a spaceship. Right, that's all we needed now, and then perfect. The Space Pirates too. So as conniving as that guy was, he was actually kind of doing the right thing. He was going to make the Cybermen extinct.
Yeah, but he was kind of also the reason that a whole lot of people died on this
exactly.
ship. Like, they did not need to kill
everybody.
everybody
to do it too. What an asshole!
I know, like, that's some terrible, terrible ways to go. Like, there could have been, it was a really bad way to go about it. And in the end, he only really wanted it because he wanted to get a lot of gold out of these people. So it is like the worst way to go about it. They could have easily if the Vogons had talked to the actual like government of humans instead of one man, they could have totally pulled that off better without killing a bunch of people.
Exactly, and they could have actually achieved their goal of making the Cybermen extinct, which is what Vorus wanted to do. Now, Vorus ends up getting killed by a crap ton of counselors. The counselors go to town on Vorus. He gets shot in the crap, and then he pulls all the switches, and he's like, "Peace!" and dies when he shoots his rocket to go blow up the Cybermen. And I love how Vorus manages to beat the crap out of Harry and the commander of Nerva before the counselors open fire. Hey, how about we could let him overthrow these guys? Now, I loved the story the whole way through, except for the end. I absolutely hated the ending scene with Sarah Jane and the Fourth Doctor when the Cybermen are like, "Hey, you should tie each other up." I'm like, just kill them. Just kill them. Like, when they first capture Sarah, it makes sense because they want to interrogate her and get more information. I completely agree with that scene. However, this scene here, he should have just killed them. And then like the cyber leader was gloating. Like, I know this is going to contradict what I just said. I like them to be able to emote a bit, right? But to gloat, I don't think gloating works. And for me, that was such a poor point for the story. I mean, what are your thoughts? Am I just overreacting, or?
Well, it feels to me it felt a bit more built up properly with the way that the cyber controller was acting in general, where he was very very human in many of his mannerisms, where he was where he was being like really angry about things a lot of the time and just taking pleasure in annoying and doing bad things. Like he was being a proper bad guy rather than just being a Cybermen bad guy. Like, so it definitely felt like true to his character to put them in that scenario, but it didn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel right to the Cybermen race for him to do that. Like, I would have imagined that in that sort of circumstance that the other Cybermen might have been like, "Yo, why are you being so emotional?" Like that sort of deal. But of course, this is supposed to be the last few Cybermen. So I imagine that they've been sitting around for a while, maybe gone a little bit crazy, allowed their emotions to overflow a little bit, almost become a sort of Croton-esque thing going on there, but just being evil still. So praise be to Croton. I think if you just take away the fact that if you take away the Cybermen aspect of them, it feels proper for their character to do that.
I agree. I see that side, and now I agree. That's definitely improved the story overall for me with that point of view. I really liked the story. I loved the amount of work that seems to have gone into this. It feels a bit like, for me, like sort of like when Patrick took over from William, where the budget feels a lot bigger. Like we've just come from Genesis, which was a big 6-parter, but like the effects work. I mean, Nerva looks better in this than it did in the actual space station episode. You know, the arc.
Yeah, it does actually feel like they'd planned on this very well. Like they were like Nerva's going to be used again, but it's going to be used again before this happens. So we need to make it look newer. Like it does look like that.
Yeah,
it looks like there's actually just like it's just been built compared to before, where it looked like it was disused.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the set work. I love the design of these Cybermen. I love the sort of the sort of quality plastics that they seem to be using for their skin. I love the Cyber Leaders' head units. I love especially that black on silver look, which is similar to what Croton has, as the black on silver look, and just the way the Cybermen are in this, and the fact that they are rodents, and they have another human controlling a literal rodent for them.
That is great.
I think it's a good echo of what the Cybermen have become.
The Cybermets.
Oh, sorry, you first.
Cybermets in themselves really echo that whole thing very well. That they go around like rodents, sneaking in holes and slashing onto people. It makes it seem like one of the cyber controllers at some point was like, "Hey, we kind of seem like we're rodents, like parasites. What if we made those? Whoa!"
You know what? I like where you're going with this, Cybercron. Let's do it. I miss when they had like really weird names, which I understand why they don't now, because those were Mondasian Cybermen. They had just recently started converting.
Yeah, they were people beforehand.
Yeah, exactly. And I loved Krang. I think that's my favorite Cyberman name, Krang. And if anybody's listened to Spare Parts,
that's Krang.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's a good point. And Krang was cybernetic in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well.
Yep.
But yeah, so if anybody's listened to Spare Parts and remembers the 10th planet, you'll remember Krang. And Krang's a great character, but the Cybermen in this are used to a great effect, and it's going to be funny when we start going over the comics this week. Again, we don't plan these things, and when we get to the comics, you're gonna see some stuff. And I think this is a good use of the Cybermen. It's great having them take a rest, and that's what I like about Classic Who is the Daleks and the Cybermen take a rest quite a lot. Apparently, we won't be seeing them until Peter Davison's the Doctor. So, goodbye, Cybermen. I suppose this was meant to be your last hurrah. And if you look at the narrative, it works as their last hurrah.
Yeah. That is definitely the idea behind this, is that even like in story they're saying, hey, this is the last of them, we're going to blow them all up.
Yeah.
But of course, the Doctor is a time traveler, so necessarily we should know that he's going to at some point maybe see them again. Especially considering they talk about a cyber war that he hasn't seen, that he's never been a part of. So it's very likely that they were also planning on maybe some point showing the cyber war.
Dude, if Big Finish, because they've got the rights to new series monsters now, if Big Finish pick up the war and it's Mondas versus Cybus, I'm done.
Well, I would imagine that the cyber war involved in the beginning. I would, for my pleasure, I like to think about this. that at some point in the beginning of the cyber war, probably before we started calling it the cyber war, that Cybermen themselves had different factions that fought against each other, eventually becoming the Cybermen that they know now in this story, and then starting attacking everyone else.
Right, yeah, that works for me. I could see Talos versus Mondas.
Yeah, that like there was a big cyber war between the Cybermen, and probably also including the ones that 10 fought. The alternate universe ones. What did he call them? Cybus ones. Yeah. So all of the proper Cybermen from every part of it, all fighting against each other, and then eventually becoming these ones, and then and then going in and getting themselves wrecked by humanity and all the other races. And the 11th Doctor there at some point as well, because he was totally at
okay. Yeah, I can get into this because Croton's part of that war as well. So Yes. Okay. No, I'm on board. So with that story wrapped up, I definitely suggest people watch it. It's on like heaps of platforms now. I think you can pick it up on iTunes now. Definitely grab the story. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm
Tom Baker.
Tom Baker. Yes.
Tom Baker episodes are going to be the very easiest for you guys to find when it comes down to it, because America really loves that.
Yeah, America really does love Tom Baker. So with that out of the way, Bravish Heart, Harry Kelly, take us away.
Yeah. Well, it follows on from the last episode, so it's definitely not bad. I can say that much. It's not bad. It doesn't fall in the same holes as many of the last few episodes did. But it does have some downfalls in places. Mainly just a lot of the
April's dad.
The
social, throw that out there.
Yeah, April's dad doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense at all. But I was going to get to that. I have a lot of problems with a lot of the socializing that's going on in this now. It just doesn't. All of their reactions to each other, all of their conversations that they have, just don't seem real anymore. Like, I have to suspend my disbelief so hard to get in there.
Yeah.
Like, just the way that April and Ram talk to each other, and Ram talking about his religion to her as well, like in the middle of being in the middle of another planet where they could have been attacked at any time by shadow creatures. Creatures are made of shadow that you can't see, and he's talking about his religion to her that he doesn't even really truly believe in.
Yeah.
What? That doesn't make any sense.
What was it that scene supposed to prove as well? Like, that's writing 101.
I don't know.
The dialogue has to mean something.
Yeah, it doesn't fill any gaps in there at all. It doesn't seem to give her any. Yeah, it doesn't seem to give her any like oomph to it. Like, she was already coming here to kill the king. Like, she didn't need any more assistance in that.
Yeah.
Like that. This whole they turned that into the main line of this episode, where it really shouldn't have been, because she'd already decided on what she was going to do. She was already going there to do that. So why didn't we just play that out properly? I mean, sure, like, we could have, what happened in the end. We didn't even need a build-up to what happened in the end of that story, because we knew, we in the back of our minds, we would know that she wouldn't really want to kill him because she's, a good person, that sort of deal, really human crap, that sort of general stuff. So we should have had the main storyline to this be the petals.
I was just
going
thinking
on with that.
And
then just have
this should have been, right, is not a two-parter. It should have been two separate episodes. One, April confronts the king. One, these petal monsters. Make them two separate things, because merging them together, nothing works, because there's no cohesion. Flipping between these two situations, they don't meld.
It could have melded a lot better. I mean, the simple way of sorting this out would just be to have them be two distinctly different episodes. But if they wanted to play this, they just needed to play it a little bit differently, where having this episode should have been a very minor look at what April and Ram were doing, and their backstory should have been very minor to what was going on with the petals. But it seemed like the petals were getting a backburn sort of feel to it, when it was the proper threat here. Like,
yeah,
the petals, even if April and Ram succeeded, the petals were going to destroy this world. So that should have been the main focus here. Like, that was the point at the end of last episode, was that we found that the petals were killing everything and we're going to completely destroy this planet. So why was that not the main focus of this episode? Like, they're taking a lot of risky moves by thinking that the characters have a stronger storyline than the other ideas they're coming up with. But it's really not the case. Your characters are deeply flawed in many ways, so you should probably focus on those. And
it's not like a character flaw that Harriet Skelly's bringing up here. He's saying they're flawed as in the ability of writing towards these characters is flawed.
That they just don't feel human in many circumstances. Like, I understand that, like, there's a lot of leeway when it comes to being a teenager, where you're not sure how to to act in certain situations, that sort of deal. But that's not being played out here. It's just them not acting like people. Them trying to fill storyline stuff that also doesn't make sense, really. That doesn't fit properly. It feels like a bit of a jumble when it comes down to it, and you'd probably actually get more out of the story if you just skipped past main talking points that they have. Whenever you see the characters start lining up to just start talking to each other, just skip past it and go into the action. Then you'll get much more out of the story.
You raise a good point there. And I noticed it when I was watching this. The characters line up before they talk. This whole episode.
Yeah, that they get ready to talk. It feels so robotic.
Yeah, because humans don't do that. We can talk while we're walking. What? It's a thing we've been able to do since we evolved.
It gets really, really, really weird there, and then. That's just the main part of the story. If you go ahead and cut out a bunch of it, then you've got a 20-minute good story actually. But even then, there's just some bad explanations to things. Like the underneath is where these Shadowkin are.
Yeah,
and that doesn't make any sense either. Is it an alternate universe? Is it just a planet orbiting a dark star? It could be anything. Also, there was a dark star there. Why did no one reference David Bowie? Come on.
Yeah, and another thing that okay, so I've noticed with Patrick Ness's work, he is a tell don't show writer. Now, when you are writing a book, that's okay, right? And he comes from a novel background. The thing is with film, especially with film, you have to show. Don't tell. When she talks about the underneath, right? She brings up this really elaborate backstory. We should have seen that. Yeah,
it should have been. It should have been real. It shouldn't have been told at all. It shouldn't have been any telling about it. In fact, we didn't even need to know about any of that stuff. We didn't need to know about it at all.
It's pointless.
It doesn't add anything to this. If she was bringing it up because it gave reason for there to be a king, and the reason that when she fought him, she became the king. That would have made more sense. But she didn't even bring any of that up in that point. Yeah. What was the point of that conversation?
Exactly, and that's the same conversation where he brings up his religion as well.
Exactly. That's the thing, is that entire conversation was just filler for this episode.
Yeah.
It just...
Yeah, the problem with this, is it feels like they've been writing it to fill in the fact that there's no Doctor Who this year, instead of making it its own show.
It feels like it's filler, and it could have been so good. The first 2 episodes were so good.
Yeah.
And then it just it got off running. It was taking a nice pace, Usain Bolt sort of deal, and then it just hit a couple of rocks and just slammed into the ground. And then it's trying to get back up, but they're still throwing rocks at it.
Yeah. Exactly. It has not been handled well, and this is what I brought up last week. Don't have one writer for a whole season.
No, I think we may just see this level of writing throughout the whole season.
Yeah, I think.
And if it manages to get enough backing from people, I don't know if it will. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's struggling. It's struggling.
Yeah, I imagine that it is struggling in England and in the UK. If it manages somehow to get a second season after Doctor Who, I hope that they decide to bring on more people.
Yeah.
To write for this. I'm open. Hey.
Yeah, exactly. Just hashtag Harry Skelly. Hashtag make it happen. Make a wish foundation, Harry Skelly. Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much going to bring us to a close for Part A. I know Part A's been ending on sour notes recently, and I do apologise, but
we should probably start with class.
Yeah, maybe we should start with class.
Yeah, we'll do that next week.
Actually, someone hit us up in the comments if you would prefer class to come first, and then we end on a high note with Classic Who, since we have Terror of the Zygons next week.
Oh yes.
So yeah, I'm open for that. I think we should probably move the time slot for class, move it in front for Part A.
Well, we'll do that next week, and we'll see how people like it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's Part A for this week. We're going to move on to Part B. See you all there.